This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Slack. Slack is a messaging app which brings together all your team's communication into one place, making work simpler and more productive. Go to slack.com to learn more. RX Bar is a whole food protein bar with no BS. Get 25% off your first order by going to rxbar.com/Andrew and using the promo code Andrew. That's rxbar.com/Andrew. Promo code Andrew.
What's the tech?
Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zare, and of course, I'm joined by the one, the only, my favorite person today, Paul Thurrott.
Hello.
How are you?
You know what?
You know what's really weird. So I have a computer right across from me, which you can't see here, that I use as a monitor for what I'm doing. Like I'm switching the cameras, or I'm pulling up a live read, or I'm pulling up, just a graphic or a website. I don't have the availability to do that right now because Paul's on that computer because vMix call is not working. And I think it's a Chrome 66 problem.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I saw you posted that Chrome 66 was out. So I know that it does something with audio.
Right.
There were some changes other than just with the ads that are muted, but there were some audio changes. So I think it broke something, which is not a good thing right now. I'm staring at nothing when I'm doing the show. But how are you, Paul? How was your week?
It was, well, it's only Tuesday. It's okay.
Last week.
My weekend was nice.
Tuesday to Tuesday. Anything interesting?
Since last Tuesday. No, just this final nice weekend, or first nice weekend, full nice weekend of spring, which was greatly appreciated.
Yeah, very much so.
Spend some time outside.
It's getting there. Last week we had an interesting show. We were talking about Windows 10 and the future development of Windows 10, and I got some questions regarding that. But we were talking about the PC over the last couple of weeks and how the consumer goes and buys products, and I got a lot of feedback over that, and I'm really enjoying this feedback that I'm getting because it really adds a new depth to the show where I could actually pull up stuff that you guys are talking about and thoughts that you guys have and discuss it with Paul, which is always very enjoyable. I want to do that today, but we brought up Redstone 5 last week, and a lot of people said that we didn't talk too much about it. Like there was information that we missed, and I don't know what information that would have been because we kind of covered, like the main thing, like with the way that I guess we went down the list. I don't know what we missed. Anything that stands out that we didn't know?
We might be confusing things. There's Redstone 4, which is the thing that's coming out
any second
now. Right. Redstone 5 is the version that's coming out in the fall. We don't really know much about that other than sets is the big.
And that's what we spoke about. I thought maybe we missed something that was announced after, but I took a look and I didn't see anything. So I'm curious if Paul knew, which he doesn't.
Sorry.
Which he doesn't. So I do want to talk about Redstone 4 and Windows and the PC because I've been asking people based on the emails that we've been getting, and I think I may have it wrong on how people are going and buying computers and tablets and phones.
Okay.
What's
your take on this?
My take is that a lot of people, I assume that the casual consumer goes in and buys whatever they could afford.
Yeah.
But the emails that I got, and obviously, listen, we have a very much a tech-devoted audience, right, that knows the latest and the greatest, and they were telling me, like, no, I go and I buy the most, I go and I buy a $1,000 premium laptop, and I buy whatever if that's what I could afford, that's what I'm going to buy, but I always go for the premium because of the longevity of the device, which I wanted to talk about that and how the market really does not reflect those emails to me. I want to talk about that and a whole lot more, obviously. Yeah. But before we do, I want to talk about a great sponsor of ours, and that's Slack. I've been talking about Slack because I use it, and I've implemented it at my job. So what I do, I am the head of I'm the director of digital marketing and interactive. I don't know, 5,000 titles, right? But essentially, what I do all the online-based, web-based marketing for my company. I handle the social media, and I handle the graphics, I handle contests and things like that. And communication can be a major problem when you have 10 different departments that you got to, relay the message. So other than an email chain that could get lost, if one person is not CC'd, it's gone, right? They're totally out of the loop for the next X amount of emails. So I implemented something called Slack, and it connects all your tools and services where you need it, and it makes it super easy to collaborate. It's a collaboration hub, essentially, that lets you organize your team's work, and it's very searchable, by the way, so you could have projects, interests, teams. You could sort it by office, you could sort it by departments, and you could keep everybody in the loop. These guys are actually great, and the fact that you could... it's easily, you could share, obviously you could share your documents, but it's easily integratable with Salesforce, Zendesk, and Google Drive, and more than 1,000 different applications could go into this. I use this to kind of separate the departments and give them the graphics and the promotions that we're running. So I have one that's a super group of all the, directors, and I have one set up for each department, and I just drag and drop depending on the department and depending on the crossover, which is unbelievable. You can get more information by going to slack.com, and you can learn more there. Slack.com. I want to thank them for supporting What the Tech. Paul, let's talk about the PC market.
Okay.
So a lot of, I buy, and I think you're one of these too, right? Like when you're purchasing a laptop, let's stick with a laptop, because desktops, I haven't bought a desktop in 10 years, right? I build my own desktops. But for a laptop, I will always go and buy the top of the line, because I do graphic stuff. I do Photoshop. I do Illustrator. I do stuff like that. So I kind of need the horsepower. And I really hate the fact that if I were to buy a $500 laptop, there's a good chance that within a year and a half or 2 years, I'm going to have to go and swap it out for another one. I like to use these things until they die. I'm not one of these people that goes and purchases one every year or every 2 years. My life cycle on a laptop is life and death. That I don't know if it'll last me 6 years or 5 years. I generally, but I get good mileage out of these things. I was getting a lot of emails saying no, I go and I swap them out every 2 years or every year because sometimes that's what's needed. And I go and I buy a $500 laptop because things change and technology changes. Right. Is this a common practice? Because I got I got a lot of those emails. And the other one I got was, no, I go and I spend the most money that I could possibly spend, and I sit on that. I did not get any of I buy, $300 and I let the laptop sit there, and I just use my phone for everything, which primarily is what the market is like now.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to hear from those people, right? The normal mainstream folks are not listening to this podcast. So, yeah, I mean, I think in the world that we exist in, we're all in kind of the same place. Assuming we can afford it, we would tend to go for more of a premium device. And I agree with you that future proofing makes some sense, depending on how you intend to use it, how long you intend to use it, and so forth. When I think of the purchases that I make, or the recommendations that I make based on review laptops that I'm able to borrow from companies and then send back, there's usually the kind of like a sweet spot, for each product line. And, this is kind of goofy because we're talking about Windows laptops. But when I think about Chromebooks, for example, I'd much rather have the entry-level Pixelbook than any other Chromebook.
The Pixelbook is their lower-end one, or the...
No, it's the most expensive one you can get. Yeah. But in other words, they make different versions of it. And so I would buy the cheapest one of that, which is the premium version, which is the premium Chromebook, but the cheapest one, right, which is normally $999, but is usually available for a little bit less than that. I just reviewed a ThinkPad X1 Carbon, for example, and the low-end version of that is mostly okay because it has really fast RAM, super fast storage, but the screen is kind of like okay. It's 1080p, it's 16 by 9. For not too much more, I don't remember the exact cost, but it's under $300. You can upgrade to I think it's WQHD, which is like 2560 by 1440 display, but it has Dolby Vision and HDR, and it's just freaking beautiful. Like, it's gorgeous. So like that kind of upgrade to me makes sense. It's going to make using the device a lot more enjoyable, you know. But you can have these discussions around Core i5 versus i7, 8 or 16 gigs of RAM, you know, how much storage you need and so forth. I think those kind of things have all evolved over time. So I tend toward the premium devices, but I also tend not to get the very best of that product because for me, it's not typically necessary.
Yeah, like when I'll give you an example. I don't necessarily need a lot of storage, right? When I buy, because everything's on the cloud now. I really don't keep a lot of the video stuff on my laptop. I actually, it's gotten to the point that I could blow this thing away. And other than installing the apps that I need, which are, I'm looking right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 applications that I'm running right now, which are probably the stuff that I generally run every single day. Other than installing those, I'm fine. You know, everything's on iCloud. The rest of my work stuff is on Dropbox. And now with Dropbox, you could actually have placeholders.
What the frick?
Have you been doing that, Paul? The placeholders on Dropbox? Have you set it up?
So I don't actually like the placeholders. I don't, the way that I was just looking to see how much storage I was using. The way that I organize my documents in the cloud and then sync that stuff to the whatever PC I'm using is based on a certain folder structure. And so I have these folders that are consistent, like they'll be 100% on 100% of the PCs I use. Promo Graphics I use for articles, which actually I don't use that much anymore. To Do, which is the articles I'm working on or want to work on later. And then I have a wallpaper folder that I just kind of sync because it's the wallpaper I like. It's no big deal. But those things combined only take up 204 megabytes. It's nothing.
Yeah.
But the other thing I sync is a folder that's for the current month. And so we're here at the end of April, and this is probably pretty representative of the size of that folder. So the April folder for 2018 it's over a gigabyte. It's like 1.1 gigabytes. And then I have a folder for the book that I'm working on, which is also about a gigabyte. So when I look back at March ended up actually 1.83 gigabytes. That was kind of a big month for whatever reason. There might be some big graphics in there or whatever. The month before that was only 661 megabytes. And so it kind of varies, you know, from month to month.
And then you back that up, obviously. It goes away.
Well, this is in the cloud. It's
okay.
It's the master copies in OneDrive. I mean, the way I think of it is I'm not backing. It's backed up. Like I just sync what I need to whatever computer I have at the time. And so over time, like the desktop computer I'm using, I've had apparently since January, because I have a January folder, February, March, and now April, and I'll have a May one soon. And so on a desktop computer that I use on an ongoing basis, I don't really care about it. I have a lot of storage. I'll leave that stuff synced. I don't need it, you know, per se. It's no big deal. On a laptop where the storage might be smaller, I might unsync a folder that's a month or two back because I'm never going to go back to that stuff anyway, and I can save space that way.
Interesting. So I have everything. I'm using Dropbox for everything, and I'm using iCloud for everything, and that's about it. I really don't have any other, you know, cloud storage, and then I delete everything. We have one master copy for all imaging that we use at work. The stuff that Suncast does, everything is on a server here. I just access it depending if I need something. But at the end of the day, it's amazing how, you know, storage has become, you know, 256 is perfectly fine for most.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I could probably even get away with 128 on a laptop. But 256 has started being kind of the entry level for most premium laptops. It's fine, you know. And of course, sometimes I might do VMs and things, and those will take up more space, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I tend to go for, like, if I can get an upgraded 16 gigs of RAM, I'll try to, you know. That's more important to me than the storage. I do have rare instances where I do need to do things like work in virtual machines or whatever, where that kind of matters. But honestly, you know, day to day, I run Photoshop Elements, which is like the light version of Photoshop, light, you know, consumer version, I guess. But most of the stuff I do is, you know, web browsing and text editing, and it's just not super resource intensive.
Yeah. What? Okay, so here's a good question, because you know, I use an i7 for everything, right? Like I've been using i7. Like this one, obviously this is a quad core i7, but this one here, this 13-inch one, is a dual core i7, which does not really get a lot of stuff done, but it's more, I mean, I used it for years, right? Like you can't go back. That's what I'm saying. Like going from it's hard for me to go backwards.
It depends on what you're doing. I mean, I don't think you're going to notice quad core, dual core. If you're using Word and Excel, you might notice. You know, Word, OneNote, Chrome. I don't know. I mean,
For
one of the
most,
things,
yes. For most, I'm saying like I can't do
for you, yeah, no,
Illustrate.
you're
I
doing
can't
video
do
editing,
yeah.
and no, of course. The kind of gimme nature of that stuff is so wonderful if you need it. If you have high end uses, like you're saying, video editing, video gaming, of course, maybe some Excel stuff, or even heavy photo editing if you're using full blown Photoshop. That quad core bump is huge. Like you're right. There's no going back. But for me, one of the computers I really, really like, and it's kind of goofy and old fashioned from a component standpoint, is Surface Laptop. So it's still a dual core. It's a Core i5, not a i7. It's only 8 gigs of RAM, only, I mean, because power user, right? But I think the storage is probably 256. It's not 128, so it must be 256. But I mean, I love it. The screen's beautiful. Yeah. The keyboard's wonderful. And for my purposes, on a trip, it's light to carry. The battery life is fantastic. I think it was north of 13 hours, if I remember correctly. And the thing, it's one of those computers where you kind of open the lid and it's on before you even have the lid all the way up. And I love that. And it just works great. And it's not anything anyone would ever point to as being particularly modern from a component perspective or being particularly high performance, but this is great.
So here's where I was going with this. So longevity, right? With the PC market, obviously we're holding on to these devices longer and longer overall average. I think you brought it up, and I've read the study too, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it's always been said, 3 years was the lifespan, and now we're closer to 5 years for.
I bet it's longer than that.
Maybe 6 years, maybe 6 years. Yeah. But does that reflect you and me at any level? I know. Listen, first of all, we got a lot of review stuff. We have to purchase stuff for it. But I'm saying, as enthusiasts, do you think our audience? And this is a great question for you guys. And send me the emails, guysfromqueens@gmail.com. How often are you replacing or purchasing new laptops? Do you go with the concept that I have, where I use it till it dies because I don't want to spend that kind of money, or do you, you're adamant as to having the latest and the greatest?
I think the other thing you might want to tie to that is, how often do you reset the computer? One of the things that's kind of unique for me and takes me out of the real world in a very dramatic way is that I review laptops, right? And so I go on trips, and oftentimes I'll just bring whatever the latest laptop I'm reviewing. When I went to Colorado, I actually brought 2 laptops, but I brought the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 I was just talking about, and I brought that HP Envy X2. And this week I'm going to Boston just for a long weekend. Assuming I can get the X2 review out, which I believe I can, I'm probably going to bring Surface Laptop just to travel light. The week after that, I'm going to Seattle for Build. Same thing, barring any new laptop for review, I'll probably bring the Surface Laptop. But oftentimes I'm just on a new laptop for some number of weeks, and then I go on to the next thing. And if I do keep a thing going, like this desktop computer here, which, like I said, I think has been going straight since January. I mean, even on a desktop computer, I mean, the shelf life for me on these things is maybe 6 months. And part of it has to do with new versions of Windows are coming out all the time, and I'm reviewing them and writing about them, and I want to start fresh and see that thing. But it kind of takes you out of the drudgery that a normal person would experience over time, where the performance maybe is going down. They're piling apps on it over time. That's impacting the performance and the reliability. So sometimes I don't see that stuff because I'm always kind of moving on to the next thing. And I bet a lot of power users and enthusiasts do the same thing.
You know what? I agree with you 100%. You may have, unfolded the holy grail of why people replace their computers. I blow this thing away every 6 months. Actually, I should say probably now it's more like every new Mac OS cycle. Every time there's a new operating system, I do the same with Windows as well. I haven't done it on my production machines at all because actually, that's another thing I want to talk about with Windows 10, on how I have not needed to blow this thing away.
So, everything behaves a little differently, and these things impact our opinions of products, and also, you can kind of see it in the things that we say. So, for example, we've talked recently about the MacBook Air, and I've had this MacBook Air for several years now. It's fine. I upgrade this thing in turn to every single beta release of macOS that comes out. I don't use it every single day. Let me be clear. I mean, but the interesting thing is it just seems to keep going. It's fine, you know. I've had very good luck with iOS betas like that. I do the same thing on the iPhone and on the 2 iPads I have. I upgrade every one of them to every single beta release that comes down the pike. And so on iOS, we've already moved on to iOS. I think it's 11.4 or whatever.
18.9.7.5.1. No?
Okay.
That's not
Whatever it is. Whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It seems to work fine. Meanwhile, over on the Android side of the fence, I've had to reset the Pixel I had and now the Pixel 2. Well, I've replaced the Pixel 2. That's the other thing. Multiple times. And when I do a reset, I don't even mean, you know, you go to the settings reset or whatever I'm talking. I do like a bare metal install using an image I downloaded from the internet and some developer command line tools. I mean, it's kind of intense.
Do you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that's just the difference. To me, that's all you need to know about the difference between those systems. The Android thing does require that. I mean, you could probably just do a normal reset, but the iOS thing doesn't. You know, on the Windows side, I don't have as. It's kind of weird because I'm kind of a Windows guy, obviously, but I almost in some ways don't have as good of a handle on it anymore because of the nature of what I do for a living. Like I said, I am resetting or going on to the next PC so many times throughout the year that I almost don't get a good look at what any one computer would look like if you just kept using it. I'm sure it would be kind of a dumpster fire.
It's actually interesting because that's the boat that I'm in, right? Both of us. I mean, you obviously get more review stuff, but I mean, I get, you know, a good amount of stuff here also, and I'm constantly using different devices. You know, other than my main work laptop, which I'm on all day long because I'm always working, all my other PCs are constantly being replaced and swapped out and changed. My intern just walked in. Hey, Deacon. I don't know where the hell he went. So I'm constantly, you know, same exact thing. But one thing that I've always had to be on top of is my studio and the production machines. And, you know, I did not.
How do you handle that?
So it's interesting. When Windows 7, I would blow it away every 8 months. I had a clean image of everything that was set up. And every 8 months or 7, you know, whatever. When I noticed that I was starting to have some sort of issue, which you really notice these issues when you're doing, you know, live video production. I mean, essentially, I'm running a TV studio in a small corner. I mean, you saw that. You saw the studio. It's tiny.
I would call it an alcove.
It isn't. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, there used to be a bench here too. We got rid of the bench. This is a closet that I have behind me. So, you know, being in here and you know, needing to constantly do stuff and you know, the read and writes are happening all day long on this thing and running out of storage, so I have to be on top of it. In Windows 7, I would constantly have to blow things away and start over. Blow things away and start over. Since going to Windows 10...
It was laborious back then, too, by the way. That was the other issue.
Since going to Windows 10, I've done it twice.
Interesting.
Once with the first version of Windows 10, and I did it one more time, but it had nothing to do with Windows. It was a terrible, terrible driver for a video card that screwed up everything.
I mean, for whatever it's worth, I mean, a lot of people listening to this, like we said, are probably in the enthusiast power users end of the scale, and that's fine. And they're not going to learn anything from this commentary. But for the people who are kind of skewing more toward normal types, who would normally screw around with their computers, one of the nice things about Windows 10 is that they've made it really easy to blow it away and start over from scratch. There's literally probably 7 or 8 ways to do it, but the built-in software is pretty reliable. It's very fast. And assuming you know where all your stuff is, meaning your applications that you need to install, that you can get at that stuff. And for me, it's all in the cloud now for the most part. Either I'm downloading it from a website like Google Chrome, or it's up in Office 365, or it's up in the Microsoft Store in the case of Adobe Photoshop's Elements, whatever it might be. And then your data is synced to the cloud. You know, the notion should be, if I wake up this morning and for whatever reason this thing doesn't boot, I can blow this thing away and get back up and running, no problem. Oh, and if the hardware is completely dead, I can switch over to this other computer and everything's there. I don't ever lose anything other than maybe something sitting there open on the screen and I forgot to save it or something. In very rare instances, you might lose something small, but if you're doing everything in the cloud and you combine that with the speed at which you can reset Windows now, it's not just an easy task. It's fast, and within a couple hours, you've got everything installed. Everything's resynced. Settings.
I think we forget. Nice. I think what's happened is a lot of us have forgotten how tedious and laborious, as you said, it was.
Oh, I go back. Yes,
I joke
yes.
about it all the time about how, you know, I was one of these guys. I would go to MS Config and then I would turn stuff off and I would bare
Oh, if,
minimum.
if you want to hate yourself for a little while, no, for a
Yeah.
long time actually, because it would take a long time. Yeah, try to reinstall Windows 7 from
Dude, I
scratch, or
just
Windows
did
8.
it. I just put
Yeah, no,
Windows 7 on a machine. I
I did
just
the
did
same
it.
thing twice this spring for the
Yeah.
book because I have to document the upgrade process, and so
It's old. It feels
yeah.
old.
In fact, I said to Raphael and Martin, I guess at the time, a couple months ago now, I said, and I might have put this in the book, I don't remember, but this may be the last time I ever do it. I
Did you cry?
A, hate it, and B, I don't care anymore about people who have a computer that is still running some old version of Windows and now they wanted to bring it to Windows 10. If you haven't done this already, we're done talking. You know, it's no.
By the way,
seriously,
I'm one of those people. By the way, this machine right here, I still have Windows 7 on it, and I
Yeah.
can't install Windows 10. It's a Dell.
No, I'm
I
talking
can't
about
install
people who. No, you're fine. If you want to keep running it, that's fine.
I
What
don't
I'm
want-
saying
I
is,
don't want it.
if you tell me here in 2018, especially if it's the end of 2018 and the next version's coming out, and you say, you know what, I'm finally ready to take this computer I've already been using and bring it to Windows 10. My response to that is, good luck with that. You're doing it on your own, because I just don't think those people are left for the most part. You know, that you were either going to go to Windows 10 or you weren't. Nothing has changed in the past couple of years to make your older and older computer any more capable of running Windows 10. Just don't do it.
You know
Just
what
don't
though?
bother.
I think a lot of those guys don't exist as much as they did a year and a half ago. You know, I think.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I get it. I
Right.
get it. First of all, let me just say, I get it. Change sucks. Nobody. I'm getting older. I'm hanging on to things, and I have patterns that I follow. And you know, I get into this discussion at work with a lot of the younger people that work with me, and how they don't understand how I use Instagram, and I force them to use applications to use Instagram on their computer. Because I have a couple people doing it for me, and I tell them, I'm like, I don't want you doing it on your phone unless you're away. I want you using a computer. And they say, why? Why do you? I said, first of all, it's quicker. Second, you guys make so many mistakes with typing where it's out of control. So I've installed two app. This app, if you're using a Mac, it's this app called Flume, Flume, and there's another one called Grids, Grids, and Grids is also on Windows. And essentially, it's Instagram on your PC. And you can do everything you could do.
Because you can post. In other words, there's an Instagram app on Windows 10, but you can't post.
Yeah. You cannot post on that. No, this one you can. You could post, you could do story modes, you could do all of it. And the reason why is that it's faster for me to edit a photo here and just drag and drop, type it in, put the hashtags, and done.
You're looking at a photograph. You want to see it on a screen, not on some little... Yeah. That's one of the things I can't stand about Instagram, because, you know, you probably do the same thing. If you're taking a picture of your wife or your kids or your food or whatever it is, you take 3 of them because the storage is basically infinite. So who cares? And then you can look at them on the big screen and say, oh, yeah, the third one in is the one that's really good. But then when you go to Instagram to post it, you know, that gets smaller because they have like controls at the bottom. And it's like, well, which one is the good one? you know, and I'll often post the wrong version of a photo because of that, especially if we're doing a set of photos.
They say I'm old when I do that. They go, you're so old. You're using a computer for everything. I'm like, yeah, because I actually want to get stuff done.
It's just... No, I completely understand that. I don't actually post photos from to Instagram from my PC, but I understand why that would be better, because I've been frustrated by the tiny little window they give you when you do it on a phone.
Yeah, well, for me it works. You know, that's how I see it. But here's the thing, you no longer have to do that. Yeah, I mean, these are with blowing things away with Windows 10. And listen, I'm primarily a Mac user now, right? I mean, I would say I'm 60, 55, 45 maybe, little like this. Okay. But I could tell how easy Windows is. I enjoy using Windows when I use it. I don't feel like it's a stressful thing for me to do. You know, okay. I feel like for a lot of people that came from the Mac side, or they jump over, it was unfamiliar. And now everything's the same. It's the same apps. Apps work the same almost. The browser works the same, exactly what it is on every platform. So like a lot of these struggles don't exist. But to go back to Windows 7, it feels very dated to me at this point. Very dated.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I agree with that.
I want to continue with this discussion. I enjoy talking to Paul. Every couple of weeks we do this. We just go off and we talk about, things that this is a conversation that Paul and I would have at Rattle and Hum. This is the exact conversation, except Mary Jo Foley's not here. If she was here, it would be a very intense. She would just yell at both of us. That's what she does most of the time. I mean, that's pretty accurate, actually.
Yeah.
She calls us idiots and then has her IPA. It's perfect. Before we continue, I want to talk about that. That's not it. There we go. There we go. Andrew can't see what he's doing today. Look at this. There we go. I want to take a minute and talk about our friends at RX Bar. Get 25% off your first order at rxbar.com/Andrew when you use the promo code Andrew. That's rxbar.com/Andrew, promo code Andrew when you check out. These guys are absolutely great. RX Bar comes in 11 delicious varieties. So what is RX Bar? It's a whole food protein made with 100% whole ingredients and no BS. It actually says that on the... Do I have one here? No. Maybe D can get it. No. It actually says no BS because it has no added sugar, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, preservatives, or fillers. It is exactly what you see on the front label. So it'll say, for example, say egg whites, which that's the main protein in this. It'll say, chocolate, or it'll say... the flavor of fruit. It'll say the nut that's using. It's actually amazing, and they taste unbelievable. I probably eat one every single day. This is what keeps me from losing my mind around 2:30 in the afternoon. And I really, really highly recommend it to you guys. If you want something that is not fatty and disgusting and just candy, essentially, but you want something that's high in protein, keep you going, give you the energy that you need for the rest of the day, and it's healthy for you, go to rxbar.com/Andrew. Get 25% off your first order when you use the code Andrew at checkout. I want to thank them for supporting What the Tech. Paul, anything new on your end? Did you get any of the new HP laptops? Because I'm still waiting for mine.
No, not yet.
All right. So I was hoping I would have had it today, and I had based it
really?
on me getting it today,
Okay.
and that did not happen. So they're sending it over, but this is what I was going to ask you. When you go, when you're reviewing a laptop, right? What are your what are the three things that make it a enjoyable experience for you? Like, what are your three standouts that you use to overall say, you know what, this is a good product?
I mean, I think, in
the order,
just like the
1 to 3.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say, aside from just the general design, right? Which can oftentimes make or break a product. The three big ones to me are the display, the keyboard, and the trackpad or the pointing device, right? And the truly great laptops get all three of those things right. And for whatever it's worth, despite some form factor weirdnesses, like Surface Book 2 is a good example of perfect screen, perfect trackpad, perfect keyboard. Surface laptop, same thing. Without any of the design quirkiness. It's just a straight up MacBook Air type, Ultrabook, perfect keyboard, perfect trackpad, perfect screen. I mentioned the ThinkPad Carbon X1 Carbon that I just reviewed, kind of a perennial top of the list kind of device. But one of the things that bugs me about it, and it's not Lenovo's fault per se, is the lack of a 3x2 display on a productivity machine. I think it's time we kind of embrace the fact that 3x2 is optimal for productivity, and 16:9 is optimal for entertainment. And we're not on a laptop to do entertainment 9/10 of the time. We need to optimize for the everyday, not for the occasional. So I kind of have to ding them on that. But the other part of a good display is the kind of quality of the display, which can take many forms: brightness, color radiance, and resolution, which, like the high DPI thing, I think is a requirement today. And so once you've gone to a high DPI display and you go back to 1080p, it's like you can kind of see pixels and it looks a little rough around the edges. So unfortunately, in the case of the device I reviewed, it was 16:9 and a fairly low resolution display, and that kind of made it less than perfect for me. Close, but not quite. The HP Envy X2, which is compromised by Windows 10 on ARM and the ARM platform, is a beautiful form factor device. Great screen, 3x2, by the way. And for a keyboard that's on a type cover, like a Surface style keyboard, a really good keyboard and trackpad experience too. Yeah. So, that kind of thing matters to me a lot.
Does touch make a difference for you? Do you need your laptop to be touch?
No. No, touch works out to be a nicety, and so I know for some people, if you have especially a transforming device where you can use it like a tablet or whatever, there might be some niceness to that. And I like touch for reading, curiously, because oftentimes I find it easier to just kind of flick on the screen for scrolling. It's works better for whatever reason in many situations, but I prefer to use any computer, any laptop in a normal clamshell way. And that's true of devices that can contort into other form factors too. So an HP NVX2, 9 times out of 10 or more, I'm going to be using that thing as if it were a laptop. It's just the way it is. I don't ever in real life pop the lid off of the Surface Book 2 and use that thing like a giant tablet. I just don't care or need that kind of thing. So it's just the way it works out. So
Yeah.
touch is nice. It doesn't detract in any way. I like it when it's there, but it's not crucial.
You know what's interesting? The fact that USB in a year or two will not be a necessity as much. Like regular USB, not USB. Not USB C. Like a lot of it's interesting how it's changing because everything I have now is Thunderbolt. Even the HP that I have, it has HDMI, USB on it, but it's going over to the small form factor.
Yeah, and again, everyone's needs are kind of different, but day to day, the truth is whatever the power connection is, whatever the expansion capabilities are, don't really matter to me almost ever. And the exceptions to those things are I'm on the road and I have to do a podcast, and now I have to connect a microphone.
Okay.
That microphone that I'm using is USB based, and if the thing is USB-C, I need to remember dongles and all that kind of stuff, and it will hit like that. If I don't do this, but if I were ever going to go someplace and I wanted to play a video from my computer to a screen, if it didn't have some kind of Miracast capability, which most don't, I would need a cable. And then you got to think again about, okay, what's the cable I need to get off of this USB-C thing or whatever the port may be to whatever the screen may have on the other side. So it depends, on what you're doing. But again, for me, like just normal. I mean, I travel with memory. What do you call them? Memory fobs or whatever, USB memory sticks. I travel with some form of expansion, right? Meaning I can go off of whatever the port is and add Ethernet if I have to for a podcast maybe, or a headset or a video camera. But if I didn't have to do podcasts, I would never bring any of that stuff. I just don't need it, for my normal job.
Yeah. For most people, it would be. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, and I realized that I did not have a USB mini or micro, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have it on me, and I freaked out because I had to record a podcast with you at work, and I'm tearing apart work. And guess what? There's no freaking USB cables at work because who the hell needs USB cables anymore? The printers are wireless. Your phone is not USB. Most people have an iPhone. Just using their proprietary nonsense. So I'm searching. So I ended up having to go down to some camera store in Midtown Manhattan, and I paid like $20 for a mini USB. Now, is it the mini or the micro? Not the bigger one. The mini, right? It would be the mini.
The type that used to be in digital cameras.
Yeah.
Is mini. And then the one from phones is micro.
Yeah. So I spent like an absurd amount to get this stupid cable because I did not have it on me. It's rare
I always
that we
have
use
this
it.
stuff on me.
Because
I
you're
travel
smart.
with one of each cable
you're a smart
type,
guy.
maybe, no, not smart, just experience. Like you have that one experience on the road, like you just said, where you're like, I can't get my job done because I don't have this. And I've made mistakes. I mean, I've been places where like, oh crap, I don't have whatever it is, and I have to borrow one from someone or figure it out or buy one or whatever. And eventually you're just like, look, you have this little toolkit you kind of travel with if you're going on the road. And you try to minimize it as much as possible, but you have to make sure you have what you need. And because of the transition between USB, like full-size USB-A and mini USB-C, I have to bring a different little hub thing, depending on the device I'm using at the time. And I got to make sure I get that right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really like seeing, how people use their computers and seeing, normal people don't even need it anymore. I mean, that's where we're at right now. It's crazy. We've become so connected to our phones.
The other thing is that the whole dongle thing, like one of the big arguments against USB-C you always hear is, well, welcome to dongle world, You were always using dongles. If you were really using this thing, like I said, a laptop from 5 or 7 years ago, if I was going on the road to do a podcast, I would need a dongle to do the expansion, to get the Ethernet, and to get all of the devices connected at once, and to do video out, depending on the device. There's always a dongle, for a long time, there was like VGA out was the standard, and then it was like HDMI out, and now it's USB-C, of course. There's going to be a dongle. There's going to be something, it could just be a straight up cable, but I've had machines where the video out was mini HDMI.
Yeah.
Well, you need a dongle.
You need a converter. Yeah. Absolutely.
Or I don't know if it's proprietary, but ThinkPads have what I think of as a proprietary Ethernet thing that requires a dongle, so you can plug in an actual Ethernet cable.
What do they have? Wait a minute. What
it's a little it looks like USB. It's like a little tiny thing.
Oh, and it's there.
It might be a standard part for all I know. But it's just it requires a dongle. They've been using this thing for a long time. It's just the way it is. And so, to me, the necessity for dongles is nothing new. It's just that we have new dongles, But yeah, the necessity for USB anything is less and less for sure than it used to be, for sure.
So I'm on therot.com, and I saw this earlier, and I wanted to bring it up at the start of the show, and I totally forgot. But what the hell is Windows 10 Lean?
Well, we don't know, but I mean, based on the way that it appears in these RS5, this very latest RS5 build, I think it's a replacement for Windows 10s.
Okay.
And I think it's my guess, and this is just an educated guess, it's not based on anything, is that it's probably a version of Windows 10 aimed at these new mobile devices that we know are coming in the future, like Andromeda, and that it's a stripped down version of Windows that will not run desktop apps, even when you flip. There's no switch to flip. There's nothing. It just doesn't do it. And they're able to reduce the footprint of the device of the OS, because that will matter on a mobile device where it wouldn't matter on any PC today, right? Saving 2 gigabytes of space on a PC is just pointless. It just doesn't mean anything.
Interesting.
But on a mobile device, that would be important.
Yeah. So it's primarily just Windows 10s. A stripped
down.
What
it looks like. I've never seen it. This is brand new. So what it looks like to me is what Windows 10 Cloud, which was what became Windows 10s, looked like when we first started hearing about it. It takes the same place in the install list. It's stripped down. It's stripped down even further. So you can't even download executables from the internet. It won't even let you do it. And if you try to run one, if you get it on there somehow, it doesn't even throw up a dialog. It just doesn't work. And so I think this is their next step at like, okay, let's try to make a mobile OS.
Yeah.
But it's really Windows 10.
Yeah, I'm curious. So what other than what devices do you see this being on, other than, ARM based, possibly lower end?
That is it. That's what it is. I think that's not a PC. But it runs a PC OS that runs the store apps. And so Andromeda is supposedly a 2-screen device, mobile phone capabilities, even though it's kind of bigger than a phone. It's probably for something like that.
Have we gotten any more news on Andromeda at all?
No.
Nothing. So we're going based on the I guess it was January the last time something came up.
I had heard something about it fairly recently. So, but I thought we talked about this. I mean, this is a few weeks old now. So, Andromeda is happening. It's a thing. It's a 2-screen device. It is aimed at productivity, not at consumption, but I'm sure it'll be kind of a consumption device as well. And I think it's based on the description, it sounds like it's kind of a note-taking solution.
So it's the Courier.
Well, yeah, I mean, conceptually it's similar, but the Courier didn't make sense when they were.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So are we talking tablets as well? Are we looking at, is there a possibility of a tablet only? I know that the Surface could become a take it, walk it around. It's essentially a tablet, but a Windows Lean, Windows 10 Lean tablet.
It's possible, but you have to kind of think through what's the point, right? So Microsoft's whole deal is productivity, and they understand that no one's going to buy a Windows device of any kind to read ebooks or whatever. They're going to, they may do that, but that's not why they buy it. And so what are the productivity scenarios for a tablet? Well, it's pretty much note taking, isn't it? I mean, it's someone with a pen. And so does that kind of device make any sense? I would just point to the fact that you don't see any of them in the world at all. There are none. I don't mean literally none, but it just doesn't happen. No one walks into a store and buys a tablet and they say, well, do you want the keyboard part of it? And they're like, no, I'm just going to use it to take notes. It just doesn't happen. So the way tablets have evolved in the PC space is the 2-in-1 market. And so I think that is what makes sense, that you can use it like that when you need to, either by it's a convertible and you switch it around, or it's a detachable where you just pop off the screen or whatever. Yeah. But as far as like a pure tablet, like an iPad, no one's buying those. There's no market.
I mean, listen, it got to the point that Apple started freaking out, and because iPad sales were down, and they dropped prices, and guess what happened? Went right back up. as far as we know.
Well, they tried to make 2-in-1s first, and that failed. And so then they just dropped the price on the cheap one and surprised that it worked.
With the Pro?
That was the problem. That was too expensive.
Oh, with the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
It is. Listen, I got it. I got one right here. Right? Here it is. Look at this thing. It's absurd. This size, the big one, is an absurd size for a tablet. It really, you cannot function with this.
It's meant to be like a 2-in-1, right? Like, in other words, what they hope you're going to do with that thing is use it like a Surface, you know?
I don't know. I have a Surface 3 right here, Surface 3 Pro, and I can't see myself using this like a Surface to any level. It's a giant iPad with a keyboard. I mean, typing is fine, but you're still doing the same stuff that you would do on a smaller version. That's why they made this.
It's still it's touch first. That's the problem. When you get to productivity, touch is fine. Like I said, and I mean traditional productivity. Obviously, people can read emails and browse the web and all that stuff. I know people always freak out when I say this stuff about the iPad Pro, but if it's a productivity first device, it's gonna have keyboard and some touch, a pointing device. It has to.
It has to. I wanted to touch on this
not optimal
before otherwise. We need to wrap it up. Last week, was it last week? No, yesterday. I'm sorry. Brad posted an article on TheRot.com talking about Xbox after the X.
Yeah.
And I did get a lot of emails of it. I thought this was last week. I got like 3. Well, probably because it was yesterday, and I got 3 emails talking about the next Xbox. Okay. So from what I remember reading, there's another Xbox coming out, right? Like an Xbox X, another version of it?
Oh, I don't know anything about that. I just know that what I do know, and I had so many conversations with folks from Microsoft on and off the record after Terry Myerson left Microsoft and was forced to leave Microsoft or whatever. One of the guys that I've known for a long time kind of confirmed to me in a goofy way that Microsoft was working on a next generation Xbox, meaning like after the Xbox One. And so I kind of stopped him because he was just kind of moving past it. And it was kind of framed like, well, you probably heard this already, but Microsoft is doing this. And he kept talking. I said, hold on a second. I said, because I sort of figured Microsoft would milk this generation as long as they could. And then they would move to this kind of cloud delivery of games, and maybe the hardware wouldn't matter anymore. And then Microsoft's strengths in this capability could take over, and they would have to not worry so much about the hardware because they haven't been doing very well from a hardware sales perspective. But no, he in some ways, the way his reaction to it made it seem like what I said was quaint, that wasn't happening. This is just something I sort of imagined, and no, there's going to be a next Xbox. And I said, oh, okay. So Brad had come to me that morning and said, hey, I heard there's going to be a next Xbox. And I said, yeah, I know. I tweeted about this like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's heard some more details about it, and I believe he heard it from multiple other sources before he mentioned it to me as well. So I think it's fair to say that, much like the Andromeda thing, Microsoft's working on it. We may not know exactly the current form or what the schedule is, but they are in fact going down this path, and that alone is kind of interesting.
So maybe it's interesting how things get leaked, in a weird way, and it's like playing telephone.
Yeah.
Like what I was under the impression of was that there would be a refreshed Xbox One, and then there would be the next Xbox.
I think the only okay, so for what it's worth, what you just described could happen, right? I think it's very possible with the Xbox One S and X, that we would see a further cost-reduced version of each that would allow them to sell it for less and still make money on it or whatever. And like that to me makes tons of sense. And they do that every console generation. The Xbox 360 had 3 major console versions, right? Each of which was cost reduced over the one before it. The first one was just the Xbox 360. Then there was the Xbox 360S. And then the last version, I believe, was E. I think it was the name, Xbox 360E, if I'm not mistaken. That's the little one. You don't really see them as much, but it was kind of the cheapest one to make. And they lost some capabilities, I think, when they moved to the E as well, including removable or the external hard drive bit. But that's what they do. So Xbox One S, which is so beautiful compared to the original Xbox, is still cost reduced, right? That was part of the deal. Like, we're going to make this thing more attractive to consumers, but we're also going to cost reduce it for us, meaning Microsoft, and it will make it more affordable to make. I bet they can do that again. And so I don't think we're going to see like a new version of the console that adds new capabilities. I think you're going to see versions that are just cost reduced, and they may look different. They may be thinner, smaller, whatever. And I don't know, I don't know how they'll brand. Yeah. I don't know anything about it, but that makes sense, right? I mean, this time for that to happen. So I would expect that to happen. The Xbox One X in particular could benefit from that because it's very expensive.
Yeah. So I mean, this is their initiative to go cloud-based, right? This is what we're gonna see, and I would not be surprised if there's no optical media on this next version. Yeah. I mean, really, if you think about it, you give it another couple of years, is it necessary to have optical media?
Yeah, I hope they move away from that, frankly, for the next version. I think the only rationale for keeping it is backwards compatibility, and that's actually a concern, for people with libraries. So, yeah.
Get a dongle. I mean, there you go.
A dongle, yeah. Well, I could imagine, in other words, it has a disk drive of, it would have to whatever the drive type is, but they don't use it for new games. It's just for backward compatible games, or they might just rely on digital for backward.
Are you buying games on optical media or physical media? Or are you doing everything?
Never purchased an optical media based game for the Xbox One.
So who's buying
them? People are, obviously. I mean, there are normal people who feel like they own this thing. They like this. They like having the thing. They believe that makes it theirs. I really like the digital model. I mentioned Adobe Photoshop's Elements. When I sign into a computer, I go to the store, I go to my library, I download that thing onto every computer I use, whether it's one I intend to keep for a long time or a review laptop, whatever it is. And you do the same. You don't do it as often, but you can do the same thing with the Xbox. And so once you own a game, I own all the Call of Duty games digitally. When I got the Xbox One, the original one, when I got the S, and now when I have the X, one of the first things you do is you download the games you want to play. You're going to play, and they're all there in your library. And I really like that aspect of it. It's just tied to me. It's tied to my account, which is me.
Yeah, I find it interesting that we're talking about this already. We're back in this. It's early, but we're back. It starts
still
again.
Years away.
I know, but this is the beginning, right? This is how it starts, and hopefully
I wasn't going to write about this. The only reason I even tweeted about it was because somebody had written a story about PlayStation and whether they were going to have a PlayStation 5 anytime soon, and the consensus seemed to be like they're years away still, so we don't have to worry about talking about this. And I kind of tweeted that and said, well, Microsoft's working on a next gen Xbox as well. I don't know. I don't know anything about the timing, but I assume it's also years away.
Yeah, it's fascinating. All right, Paul, let's wrap it up. Go to our website, gfknetwork.com. I want to do something different next week. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to see if this works. It may work, it may not work. We'll see. You know what I'm doing next Thursday? I'm taking my boy. It's his first birthday, and I'm taking him to the Mets game.
Wow. You might as well learn disappointment.
Yeah,
early,
well, that's how I started, right? This is why I'm in the situation I'm in life.
Sure.
Those goddamn Mets. For all things Paul, go to Thurrott.com. Amazing site. You can sign up for Thurrott Premium, only a couple bucks a month, and you got all this amazing premium content with him and Brad and the whole crew there. If you'd like us, you can fund us. Patreon.com/WhatTheTech. We are not doing a bonus show today. I have a very important call I got to go on with.
Wow.
Do you know Barstool Sports? Do you follow any of this stuff? I got to give them a call. I got a very important call. Okay. which I'm gonna do. Sorry, Paul. For once,
okay.
I'm disappointing you for once.
Wow, Andrew, you never disappoint me.
That's it for this week, guys. See you later.